Welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you so much for being here. If you're a doctor, your voice matters. And on this podcast, you'll hear from colleagues who are choosing connection, courage, and humanity as they navigate today's healthcare climate. If you're a healthcare leader or a patient, your voice belongs here too, because these are the stories and conversations shaping the future of care. This podcast is about connection, advocacy, and building a healthier future for doctors and patients. If this matters to you, please like and subscribe. It helps these voices reach the people who need them most. And I'd like to add that we're hosting an amazing physician retreat October 9 to 12, 2026 at Winrose on Hudson in Ossining, New York. It will be a soul-filling event for doctors. CMEs will be available. Please reach out for more information if you're a doctor interested in attending or if anyone would like to sponsor our retreat. We can create sponsorship to fit your budget. The registration link will be in the show notes. And today is a very special and exciting day. And I would like to welcome back Dr. Drew Remignanti, Dr. Jennifer Lycette, and Pamela Marie Hobby. Thanks for joining us today, my friends.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
You're welcome. And we've come together to celebrate the official launch of the latest book in our Stand Up for Doctor series, White Coats, Human Hearts, True Stories of Healing, Belonging, and the Courage to Stay Human in Medicine, now available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. And we're recording this on February 3rd, which is the launch date, and this will be published next week. And we just wanted to share with all of you some of our authors, and we'll be doing this over the course of a few episodes. And so you're all authors in our book, and I'd like to take a moment for you to introduce yourselves. Drew, would you like to go first? What would you most
Sure.
like our audience to know about you?
I'm a retired emergency physician. I put in 40 full years of full-time emergency medicine practice, which seemed longer at times than I could handle. And towards the end of my career, I decided to write a book on my experiences because in addition to that 40 years of being a physician, I had a 50 plus year career as a patient, which is I can't retire from. So that's going on still. I had
And
some observations I wanted to offer to people as both physicians and as patients as to how to navigate that relationship in a way that's more healthy for us.
And thank you so much because, of course, I have your book, The Healing Connection, A Partnership for Your Health. And I dog-eared many pages, and I've had you on before to talk about it. So thank you very much. And Jennifer, what would you like us to know about you?
Hi, I'm a practicing medical oncologist. I've been a community oncologist now for about 20 years. And about, I guess, 10 years ago, I went through what I didn't recognize, but ultimately did figure out was burnout. And through that process, discovered my inner writer, which I didn't know existed before that. And so have found writing to be a way to help myself as well as hopefully help others. And I'm just very grateful you asked me to do a chapter in the book.
Well, thank you so much. And I have one of your books with me as
Oh.
well. And this is a great book. And we also have discussed this in a prior episode. The Committee Will Kill You Now. It's actually a really powerful read. So thank you for that. And Pamela Marie Hobby, what would you like us to know about you?
So good to see you, Kim Downey.
Mm.
I am an actor. I've been an actor for the past 27 years. I'm also an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, and I'm show creator for the documentary series called My Doctor's Meds that's in development. I'm a former patient. I was a childhood cancer survivor, and I had an instance in 2019 where I got really inspired and realized that doctors and nurses and physical therapists and radiologists may not be getting the thank yous that they need. They may not be getting that look in the eye of their patients really checking in on them. And so I embarked on a journey to really advocate for the wellness of physicians and clinicians. And it's been some of the most rewarding work. And I'm just a former patient inspiring others to thank their doctors and their nurses.
Well, and also not just, right? Because your message, you're very powerful, and so is your message. So thank you very much. And we connected because of Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation. So that's been a blessing to both of us.
Yeah.
And in part one of this book, of our new book, it's Seeing the Unseen, the Humanity Behind the White Coat. And I start off, and my chapter is titled Doctors Are Human Too. And I share in the beginning that I'm a real person, I'm a human being. I have feelings, I have emotions, I have needs, I have wants, successes, failures. That's what Dr. Todd Otten said to me during the inaugural episode of my Stand Up for Doctors podcast. It was the first thing he said after I asked what would become my signature opening question: what would you most like our audience to know about you? His response was simple, honest, and reflected sentiments from physicians worldwide. Despite cultural differences, one message remains consistent: I am human. And just the other thing that I'll spotlight from my chapter is Dr. Joe Sherman asked during our interview, who am I underneath this armor we put on as physicians? The white coat becomes an armor of sorts that doctors wear to protect themselves as well as their patients. So, this book is all about honoring the humanity of physicians. And also in this first section, we hear from Pat Dunstan, a nurse turned lawyer now living with Parkinson's disease, and Pamela. And also, Drew's chapter is in this first section. Drew, would you like to share with us the title of your chapter and why you chose to write about that?
Sure. I've called it Preserving the Patient-Physician Relationship. And then you added the subtitle, Science, Stories, and the Human Connection in Healthcare, which was pretty accurate. I ended up, towards the end of my career, being pretty much appalled by the kind of things I was hearing about the healthcare field. I'll just mention a couple of quotes that are in my book. There's this one CEO of a multi-billion dollar healthcare organization who had the nerve to make a comment in an interview that patients need primary care, but not necessarily a physician relationship. That really got me. And then another one, which was even worse, was a couple of analysts, Goldman Sachs analysts, were discussing the relatively new drug that cures hepatitis C. And the problem they were finding is that if you cure hepatitis C, there's fewer people infected with it to spread it around. So they had the nerve to ask the question out loud in their article: is curing patients a viable business model? I mean, the fact that you could not only think that, have the nerve to say it out loud. So I was disturbed enough by that to dedicate myself to trying to write the book and make people aware of the fact that we should be, we should be disturbed by that. There's a healing power within the patient-physician relationship that we can access, if we put the time in, both as physicians and as patients as well.
And I have to say, as a patient myself, right, having had cancer 3 times and now I've seen 43 doctors, is that patient physician relationship is absolutely everything. And one thing you said during our initial interview that I actually asked if you'd want to put it in our book, and you did, is you said, can you imagine if they had said during any one of our trainings, okay, we're going to take a pause here today. Now the business people are going to come in and tell you how important it is for you to spend very little time with your patients. You need to spend the least amount of time possible with your patients in order to generate a bill and then get out of the room and go on to the next patient. And that's ridiculous, but that's exactly what it feels like, right? To doctors and patients.
And they don't hesitate to say it out loud in your annual administrative review. They have a thing called, the productivity. How many patients per hour are you seeing? They don't care if you're doing a good job with those patients per hour, just what's the number you're hitting.
Yeah, the metrics are very skewed. So thank you for raising awareness for all of that, Drew. And Pamela, what's the title of your chapter, and why did you choose to write about that?
Well, it's a perfect segue from what Drew was saying, because I just wrote this chapter called Doing Dishes. I knew I wanted to write a poem. And when the editor said, really celebrate the humanity of doctors, the same exact evening, I had this beautiful moment where I was doing dishes with my sister. And we were giggling and we were laughing. And I've just relocated back to my hometown where she also lives. And it was this moment of being vulnerable and just doing dishes. And the next day, my best friend had mentioned, man, it would be so nice to go back in time and do dishes with my sisters, one of which had passed. And we started talking just about the act of doing something, an everyday task, bringing order back to, or yeah, bringing order back to the chaos of doing dishes. And it sparked this idea in me of what if patients could go back in time and do dishes with the doctors or nurses that saved their life, that had a hand in their care, to learn about what they're doing, is just an act to remind ourselves that doctors live in the minds of patients way beyond their care ending, and your names live on at dinner tables. You may not know the legacy that you leave. And so a way to honor what if patients could just go back in time and do a load of dishes and talk and laugh with the people that had a hand in their care. And yeah, I wanted it to be just an expression of that.
Well, and thank you so much for that. And my our first book, White Coat's Courageous Hearts, which is also an incredible volume, and this is written by 15 physicians. And this time we also included the voices of two physician spouses and two patients, because we want doctors to know, right, that there's other people who are thinking about you, who care, who know, and that to change the future of healthcare, that we all have to do this together. It's important for all voices. So I love that we include more voices in this book. And part two is When the Calling Hurts: Grief, Moral Injury, and the Long Way Back. And in this section, we hear from doctors Mary Long, Charity Hicks, Stephen Pierce, Beatrice Olson, who will be joining us in our next celebration recording, and Dr. Jennifer Lycette, who's here with us today. So, Jennifer, share with us the title of your chapter and what you'd like us to know about it.
Sure. Thank you, Kim. So my chapter is kind of a mini memoir essay, and it's called Breathing is a Factory Installed Setting, and Yet. And it kind of came together out of different thoughts that had been going through my brain at the time you reached out to me to do the chapter. And this I find is often how I'll come up with a piece, is at first I just have these tangents of thoughts and I don't really know how they fit together until they do. And so it's a braided essay, which basically there's three strands, and one strand is my sharing some of my initial meetings and experiences with a life coach when I, to be honest, was rather resistant to the idea of something as simple as breathing as being a tool to help us in our practices as physicians and everyone, basically as humans. And then I also share sort of some flashbacks to early medical training, and then later in recent years, kind of reaching a point which we all reach in middle age where we realize our bodies can't always hold up under these immense pressures, and accepting that, and as Drew has shared with his experience as a patient, that all of us as doctors are going to become patients at some time or another. And I tried to interweave these strands in the way that kind of came to my brain to try to draw some meaning out of it, and hopefully sharing with others who've also had those experiences. I think as physicians, we are very resistant to admitting any sort of weakness or vulnerability, and that ultimately was the key to my recovery from burnout, as it has been for so many others. So I think all of us, that journey can look very different and sometimes take a long, long time. So that's kind of how my chapter came together.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And speaking to breathing, I was like you before all of these things happened to me. Then I did participate in our local cancer support center, some midweek mindfulness. And through that, when I learned the breathing techniques, and I realized that they make all the difference, and how I wish I had learned about that sooner. So I love the way you share that very much. And also that you're right. And lots of times doctors feel, showing any vulnerability as a sign of weakness. And it's the opposite. When you say, I need help, like it truly, truly is a sign of strength, right? That you're saying, I can't do this alone. I need help. And it's the best, strongest thing you can do. And that's what I love about both of these books is all of the doctors that are willing to say, this is my story, to help their colleagues and to raise awareness, among patients and people that aren't doctors. And this work is so important. So every single story, and as they came in, it just truly felt like a beautiful tapestry, being woven. And I just love all of it. And I'll just briefly speak to the other parts that are finding each other again, connection, belonging, and shared weight. And in part three, that features Eva Minkoff, Doctors Simon Craig, Mark McLaughlin, and Ryan McCarthy. And Ryan will be also joining us next time. And then part four, Reimagining Medicine, Action, Advocacy, and Everyday Leadership features Doctors John Huff and Manjeet Obrai, and also Olivia Morris, who hopefully can join us at a later time. So I'm just so excited that we're sharing these with the world. And Pamela Marie Hobby, for people that don't know, tell us a little more about My Doctor's Meds, because I think the doctors on this call, because none of you have met each other yet, they might like to know a little more about what you're doing.
Yes. So in 2019, I met a resident and we were strangers. And just through conversation, I said to him, keep going. I am the difference that you make. Just keep going, keep going. And he had said a statement that changed the course of my life. He said, I'm afraid I'm becoming numb to it all. And I didn't understand at the time that we were losing a doctor a day to suicide. As a former patient, I didn't know that there was this burden that you speak of at the top of the podcast. You're expected to see so many patients that we were starting to take a little bit of the humanity out of the care and that relationship that Dr. Drew is speaking of as patient to doctor. And so my husband and I started talking about, what was sitting with him was he was seeing a medical success story, but he was also reminding himself and realigning himself with the joy of medicine, which is to help people and to see that patient. He was looking at pictures of me as a 2-year-old and then seeing me as a vibrant adult and making the connection that his work does really, really, he was seeing that success story in real time. And so we set out to reunite patients with the doctors and nurses that saved their life. And the documentary series that we're working on that's in development right now, we have a team with us. Dr. Jen Arnold is on our team. You may know her from The Little Couple, and she's a neonatologist and pediatrician at Boston Children's. The team that we have is just spectacular. And we found the 10 stories that we're going to do for season 1. And it's a surprise reunion. The patient gets to pick the person that they want to reunite with and kind of reach back in time. And through this process, the unfolding of making of the television show, I was able to reconnect with the 94-year-old, now 95-year-old oncologist that saved my life. And when I tell you I'd never met his wife, it had been 35 plus years since he had seen me as a 5-year-old. And I looked at his wife and I said, he must get thank yous like this all the time. And she said, no. Like it was just an emotional thing for not only the family and the spouse to see her husband's life's work in front of her. And I think it's incumbent upon the patients to reach out because there is only so much that, doctors can do because of HIPAA. So I realized as a former patient, I could really stand on a voice of saying, reach back in time, please go thank the people that made a difference in your life. Because it could be as simple as a thank you. It could be as simple as checking in on them at your next checkup. But I don't know if we're doing it enough. I think, yeah, so through the making of this show, it's really reminded us that it's going to take every voice to advocate to change, the way everything's going. So thank you for letting me share that.
Yes, sure, Pamela. So thank you. And we'll have to have more conversations, you and I, because I call myself a physician advocate. And I do advocate for physicians, but part of that is exactly what you're saying is we need to reach out to patients and patients because so many times they are grateful. And when I used to go on our town's business and happenings page, if somebody said, "Oh, can you refer to me to a great oncologist?" Like people would write wonderful things in there, but I bet so many times they didn't actually say it to their doctor or send them a note, so they don't know. And I've spoken with ER docs who go to work thinking they're not making a difference because they only hear about the bad things, like, "Oh, do you remember, so and so?" Or why did you send me this consult? Why didn't you send me this? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm just so grateful to. I've been in the ER and I have an oncologist, so I'm just so grateful, to both of you for the work you're doing and to all doctors. So we need more patients to raise that up. So thank you very much. And Drew, you're a prolific writer on I think Substack and LinkedIn. Is there a message you want to leave with with our audience about the work that you're doing, and what message you really want people to hear?
Well, I think we need to resist them. Society, the people, basically the people who are pocketing lots of dollars off of healthcare now are trying to minimize the time doctors and patients spend together. They don't really realize they're breaking that connection, but that's effectively what they're doing. And so I think we need to be aware of that. I think as patients, we probably have more power than we do as physicians or healthcare workers because you can threaten to vote with your feet. I've said to people, when you have an interaction in a hospital setting that you're unhappy with, call and ask to speak to the CEO of the hospital. You won't get that person, of course, but ask and so okay, if I can't have that person, who's the next person below that? I want to keep going until you get somebody who's willing to talk to you on the phone briefly and say, I was unhappy because when I was in the emergency department, it was pretty chaotic, which I understand you can't control that. But my physician only had so much time to spend with me, and I needed more time. And I could tell that she or he wanted to spend more time with me, but people kept pulling him away, pulling her away. And and you should really threaten those hospital settings or any medical settings saying, I'm not content with the care I'm getting. I'm not getting the time and attention I need. I'm going to go to XYZ hospital, even though it's a longer drive for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might get their attention if they think it hits them in the purse.
And that's a good point, but also, of course, to add that you could tell the doctor wanted to spend more time because they do. Doctors don't want to spend just 10 minutes of their patients, right? They went into this to care for patients. So adding that in so it doesn't add to like burden and blame on doctors. So that second part is really important. So thank you. And Jennifer, anything you'd like to add to what Pamela and Drew said? And also, you're also quite a writer, and I love everything that you write. And what messages do you want to share with our audience today?
Oh gosh, I think I would just like to share for really anyone in their career, but especially for our students and trainees, that um, you are enough. You really are enough as you are. Um, it may look like those of us farther along in our careers have it all figured out, but we are not superhuman. We don't expect you to be superhuman. And I know there's a lot of pressure for all the awareness there is nowadays. I think there still is a lot of pressure that maybe we all put most of that pressure on ourselves. And so, um, just to know that I think we all have some level of that imposter syndrome, no matter where we are in our career. But I also am so energized and encouraged and admiring of the young trainees coming up in the world, and that uh, they are actually, many of them, already so vocal about this, and they just really inspire me. So, um, that being said, I think, in healthcare, we all um, struggle with that pressure to feel like we need to be superhuman, and but none of us are. We are all human, and that's okay. So.
That is so beautifully said. In one sentence, it brought to mind because, like you said, we need doctors, and we still have new young trainees coming in. And a recent Kevin MD article I collaborated with Kelly Holder and Dr. Sarah Hollander. It was called "Joy in Medicine: A New Culture," and Sarah shares Yet every July, something remarkable still happens. A new wave of residents walks through the hospital doors, white coats still stiff, with hearts still open, and carrying hope.
Mm.
And that's what we need is a message of hope for all of us, doctors and patients. And these conversations are so important. And conversations are start with awareness and lead to action. So, as we wind down, if you have one sentence that you would like to share as your take home action message for our audience, Drew, what would you say? And then Jennifer, and then Pamela.
I would say, as you know, physicians know we need to spend more time with patients and we want to, so I don't think they need to hear that from me. But patients really should know that we want to do that. And, if we seem to be in a rush to get out of the room, it's only because other people are making us do that. And take the time to get to know us and to trust us, because that has a healing effect. If you can know your doctor and feel that like they know you, that combination of knowing your doctor and having a true feeling that they know you, that communication brings healing powers that these briefer interactions just can't generate.
Absolutely. Jennifer?
I think I'll just share the last line of my essay, which is breathe. You are enough. Breathe.
That's perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. And Pamela?
Well, there's a carousel analogy of the doctor stays on the carousel and the patients get on, and whether they survive or not, the patient leaves and the doctor is left there on the carousel to tend to the next patient and to be there for their administrative burden. And I think we can all just thank them at any chance we get.
Mm-hmm. That's a perfect way to end this. So, thank you, doctors. You are greatly appreciated. The doctors on this call and all the doctors out there working or retired, that you're greatly appreciated. And I will share in the show notes how our listeners can get in touch with each of you. And I would also like to add that this episode was supported by a member of our Stand Up for Doctors community. So, thank you for helping to sustain this work. And thanks again for being my guest. I loved this conversation.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations, Kim.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you. Thank you. And as I end every episode in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.